واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله اللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. In the first years of revelation of the Prophet ﷺ, the earliest surahs that were to be revealed to him before things intensified. So before the Quraysh became violent, before the open attacks against him began, before things were much more aggressive, to the point where you all know he had to migrate to Medina, alayhi salatu wasalam, along with the believers. There was an assassination attempt also against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before all of that, some of the earliest revelations include Surah Al-Qalam. The ayat I've recited to you belong to Surah Al-Qalam, and this is as if Allah is preparing the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the different kinds of enemies he's going to have in Makkah. And we have to first understand the difference between the enemy in Makkah and the enemy in Medina, even though they're Quraysh. The enemy in Medina is also going to be Quraysh on the battlefield, and the enemy in Makkah is also the Quraysh. But there's a difference between the enemy on the battlefield and the ideological enemy. The Quraysh in Makkah are the ideological enemy, first and foremost. They are trying to fight the message of Islam, the mission of the Prophet ﷺ. They're trying to fight it through propaganda. They're trying to fight it with a psychological war, with a war of ideas. That's the first war. The war on the battlefield was the second war. And 2/3 of the Quran was engaged in the first war. The Meccan Quran is engaged in the first war. And even before that war intensifies, that ideological war that was happening in Mecca intensifies, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was being given preparation of the kinds of attacks that are going to come. And there are two kinds of attacks in Surah Al-Qalam. And in the very next surah, in Surah Al-Haqqah, there are the rest of the attacks. So at least today, in today's khutbah, briefly I want you to know the difference between these two kinds of attacks. One kind of attack doesn't look like an attack. It actually looks like someone feels bad for you. Someone feels sorry for you. So when you've heard that the Prophet ﷺ was accused, or people said about him that he's insane, when someone is insane or they're possessed, the word majnoon means both things. Junna aqluhu aw alayhi jinn. It means that their mind doesn't work anymore, their mind is overshadowed. They've got some kind of bipolar disorder, some kind of schizophrenia, some kind of psychological issue. That's one meaning of majnoon. The other meaning in the ancient world of majnoon is there's a demon, there's a jinn that possessed this person, right? Both of those meanings they had in the ancient times. But when they say that about him, they're not saying he has bad intentions. It's not his fault. Poor man just lost his mind. Ma'adallah. That's how they're speaking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they're dismissing Islam, but they're not actually attacking the character of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They're just saying he's sick. He's not well, so we should feel bad for him. So this is an attack, but it's not an attack on his character. It's just a way of dismantling or dismissing what he's going to say without actually directly attacking his character. And the opposite of that, you will find in Surah Al-Haqqah. Here, even from the beginning and at the end, Allah will tell us, مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ, or لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ. Right? So this is the accusation in Surah Al-Qalam. When you get to Surah Al-Haqqah, you're going to find they're going to call him a poet. They're going to call him a mind reader. They're going to call him all these other, and a poet is someone who's not insane. They planned. They thought about what they're going to write. They're creative. They're creating something to influence the masses. So now they're accusing the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's a more direct attack and there's a more indirect attack. And actually, the direct attack is easier to deal with. At least you know your enemy. They're right in front of you. They're calling you a liar. They're calling you this, that, or the other. But the indirect attack is not meant for you. If they're calling the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam insane, that's not for the messenger to hear. They're trying to tell the people around him that he's insane so they don't take him seriously. Because if they come to the people close to the Prophet ﷺ and say, oh no, he's a liar, he's a poet, he's a mind reader, he has another agenda, they're going to say, we know him our whole life. He's an honest person. You're the liar. So it's not going to fly. So they have to come up with a tactic that's going to work to isolate the Prophet ﷺ, and this was the isolation tactic that they came up with. Let's spread that a jinn has took over him. But of course, those words, that accusation, if you actually take the time to listen to what the Prophet has to say, ﷺ, if you actually take even a minute to contemplate what the Quran is saying, immediately you will know this is not the word of a jinn. In fact, it's so powerful, even the jinn know it's not a word of a jinn. Even the jinn hear that they hear, إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا